Hello, BookTube. This is Aaron from Aaron Read a Book or Aaron Read a Book. Gone doing Friday reads. It's been a couple of weeks since I did one because last week I did a book haul instead. And if you think that means I haven't bought some books, you're dead wrong. I had two in the post when I went on that book haul. I was having a conversation with someone about sort of weird childhood crushes. Like, what films did you have with childhood crushes on? And theirs theirs was for Dickon from The Secret Garden, the 1970s maybe adaptation of it. I don't think I've ever seen it, but I realised I'd never read it, and I want to read some Burnett because she's written some pretty sort of popular books and she's Victorian. So I got When I'm Vinted and found this edition, which is I really like. They're like Puffin Classics, so they were weird sort of size and shape. I also went into this person's Vinted shop because Vinted is slightly higher postage than eBay. I always have a look to see what else they've got, which is dangerous, but it did mean I ended up buying this one as well. Again, Puffin Classic, Little Women. I thought Little Women was really long. I don't know why, but this doesn't seem very long, and the pages are quite small. So I was worried it was an abridged version, but I don't think it is. But again, a really cool cover. So I've got these two little puffins, and they're both in good condition, which is nice. Just a bit dull on the spines, but that's it. So those are the only ones I've hauled, and I really do need to cut out the hauling a bit for a while. I've read quite a few books since last did a Friday reads. Finished quite a few. Firstly, for Rocket Summer, I read The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. I've read all of H.G. Wells' big books, not physically big, but big reputation books, apart from this one, I think. And now I've read it. And I really like this one. I to be honest, I've liked every H.G. Wells I've ever read. I think he's really interesting. Maybe just because of the era more than anything, but I just think he had a wonderful imagination. I don't even want to talk too much about it because I didn't really know anything about it going in, and I think that's the best way to go. What I will say is it's about a sailor who, well, he's not a sailor, but he's on a ship who's shipwrecked. He's actually a doctor of sorts, or a student of biology, and he's washed up on this island where very strange things happen, and they won't let him inside the compound. He has to sort of sleep outside the compound, and all the assistants and stuff have very strange faces and looks, and it turns out Dr. Moreau and his assistant have been doing biological experiments. So he sort of explores other things like alien invasions and War of the Worlds and time machine. That he explores sort of time. But in this, he's really I like how he jumps from different sciences and focuses on them. And this one, he's just really focusing on what could go wrong with biology. Obviously, the science in this is absolutely bonkers and unrealistic, but it just makes for a really fun book. And when you get to the end, I found it really sort of quite deep and reflective, the ending. It was really well done, so that's definitely one that I would recommend. And all H.G. Wells is really fun, and they're all really short as well, so you can really fly through them. But yeah, that was a really good experience for Rocket Summer. Next, I'm going to go to one that my workmates advised me to read, and I wasn't really familiar with this author, and my workmates have been in a book club for like 25 years, and they take in turns choosing the book, and they recommended this to me because they read what was it called? Cranford. I don't know why that went out of my head. It's very early in the morning here. They read Cranford and didn't really like it, and I was like, how can you not like Cranford? I love it. Or I can sort of see why people wouldn't like it, but they said that it reminded them of this book, and they loved this book, and it didn't live up to it. So, and this book is Mapp and Lucia by E.F. Benson, and I can see why they thought that, but this is obviously later, sort of 1950s, I think. Let me double check. It actually, oh no, I kept thinking it was 1950s because it's kind of timeless, but it was actually 1935. So it's timeless because even today you can imagine this story happening. It's about this is a series of books that E.F. Benson wrote, the Lucia series. He wrote 6 books, and this is like the middle one or something. You don't have to read them in order. And it's about Lucia and her friend George kind of going on holiday to another village in England, just for a break. And they rent out a house, and they get to the village and they realise that the woman whose house they're renting is renting the next biggest house, and that person's renting the next biggest house. So it goes down until someone's in like a shed. So they all rent each other's houses out during the summer to make a bit of money, and it's basically a village politics book. Right up my street basically, because I love sort of Barbara Pym style village politics, and Cranford to some extent is like the precursor to the village politics novel. Lucia, like she's the queen of the village she comes from. She arranges everything, and actually when the book opens, her husband has died, so she's not doing any of the main activities. Like there's a fair going on, and she was meant to play Queen Elizabeth in it, and this other woman's playing Queen Elizabeth, and it's messing everything up. So she's obviously a big fish in a small pond. And then she goes to this village, and Miss Mapp is the big fish there, and obviously she's still there because she's just renting her friend's house down the road. And Lucia starts to sort of take over things in the new village as well, and it's a battle between them, and it's fought between 2 middle-aged women through tea and cake and little village events and things. But it's sort of psychological passive-aggressive warfare, and it's really funny. And the second half of this book, or the ending, I suppose, is really surprising. You will not predict it. But I loved it. It was really funny. It's right up my street. I need to read more E.F. Benson. Yeah, I'm surprised I've never heard of him. It's sort of a Victorian-ish author as well. Or he was mostly wrote after Victoria died, but very Woodhouseian, Barbara Pym-ish stuff, which was great. Will Chambers said that he's read one of E.F. Benson's ghost stories, and also wrote ghost stories, which is strange, but yeah, that was really fun. I also finished my buddy read with Sarah from Your True Shelf, which was my first ever buddy read. So it was my first ever one-on-one buddy read anyway. I'd done event read-alongs before, but it was really interesting to dig deep into a book. I felt like I've been in this book for ages, in a good way, which is Dreaming the Eagle by Manda Scott, which is the first of her 4-book series on Boudica. And me and Sarah chose this because we're both from our hometown. Colchester is a big part of this book, although I imagine it's going to be a bigger part of the next one. But it's called Cunobellan's Done in this, and Cunobellan's one of the characters in the book. And basically you follow Boudica from a very early age. The opening of the novel is the death of her mother being killed by raiders, and Boudica's like 12 or 13 or something and kills one of the raiders. So she very early is marked as someone who has killed someone, and they wear a bloody feather on their head into battle with each kill that they've done. And she's already destined to be the leader of the Iceni, the tribe that she's part of, which is sort of southeast England, or maybe I guess you would call it around Norwich area now, or East Anglia. But yeah, really interesting book, and really interesting how dreams are important to them. When they come of age in their religion, they kind of go off to have a dream, and they're assigned an animal and things like that. And Amanda Scott makes it feel very real. Like it feels like, obviously she's done a huge amount of research, and this is all based on archaeological evidence and stuff, and she's interpreted it, but it feels very realistic, like this could have happened. And so you follow Boudica. You also follow Cunobellan and Cunobellan's 3 sons, who are kind of vying for political or the power of Cunobellan after he dies. One is friends with the Romans, one hates the Romans, and one is kind of a mediator. Cunobellan himself has had dealings with the Romans, and he's society has 2 kind of main leaders in it, which are warriors and they're dreamers. So dreamers, like a druid figure, basically interprets dreams, and the warrior kind of protects the dreamers. And they train on the island of Mona, which is Anglesey in Wales. But Cunobellan has killed all his dreamers and kind of given up the pagan religion, but he's kind of repenting as well. So it's very interesting and political. It's kind of like a Game of Thrones, but before Game of Thrones would have existed. And there's also the threat of the Romans. Caligula is wanting to invade. A Roman washes up on the shore here as well, and you get to know Rome through him and some other characters to some extent. It's a very big, vast, spanning book. It spans many years, but is still only the first part in a long series. Manda's got also beautiful writer, beautiful on the page, as they say. Wonderful stuff. Like me and Sarah were discussing early on, she was a bit worried because I don't really like dreams and stuff in books. I've said it before, but it really fits in with this book. And I loved it, and we both gave it 5 stars. So highly recommend. We're going to move on to the second one next month probably. And what else did I read? I read another Rocket Summer book, which was the Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. I've only read one Ray Bradbury before, and that was Fahrenheit 451. I can't remember the number, but I remember enjoying that quite a lot, but not as much as everyone else said. And this one, I feel, must be an earlier one. It's written in maybe it isn't it, but it's written in 1950. and it's the series of short stories that follow Earth's or human interaction with Mars between 1999 and 2026. So it's quite funny because it's like you're seeing what someone in 1950 might have thought about today, and he gets almost everything wrong. Obviously, like we haven't gone to Mars in 1999, but yeah, it was really interesting, but more a reflection of its time than this time. I didn't like it as much as Fahrenheit 4/5 or whatever it's called, and it felt it's weirdly light book. It's like quite funny, but not as funny as someone like Simak or Kurt Vonnegut or someone. So I don't know who Bradbury's going to be for me, but it was very imaginative and interesting. Some of the short stories, some of them were like 1 page long, and I always find with short stories like that, quite hard to connect to them. And this whole book I found quite hard to connect to, but it was still an interesting read. And I've got Dandelion Wine. I want to try more Bradbury before I make any major judgments. But yeah, it was just interesting, not really amazing anyway, considering how highly regarded this book has been. I've had it for years on Kindle and not read it, but I was maybe expecting more, I don't know, it to make more of an impact to me. It reminds me of quite a lot of City by Simak, which also spans a long time, much longer than this, and it's told through short stories, but it has dogs in charge, so it's much better. But yeah, so it was quite interesting. Also, at the same time, I'm also reading now Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, and Andy Weir just writes pure page turning stuff. It's not in any way like groundbreaking or it's full of plot holes as well, but you don't really care because it's so much fun to read along. So it kind of weird reflection between Project Hail Mary and reading the Martian Chronicles at the same time. It seemed to drag in parts compared to Project Hail Mary, which is just, you just want to know what happens. Yeah, so I'm reading that and quite enjoying it. Also reading Emma still by Jane Austen, or I should say listening to. But yeah, that's all I'm reading at the moment. I need to pick something else after Project Hail Mary. I might go back to Star Trek. I've got a new Star Trek t-shirt. I'm slightly worried about what that says, but I'm sure it's okay. But yeah, how are you doing, BookTube? What have you been reading? Have you read The Island of Dr. Moreau? Have you read Dreaming the Eagle? I'd be surprised. I hadn't heard much about that one. And I'm especially interested if anyone's read E.F. Benson, the Lucia series, because it was a delight. It was a delight, and I hadn't heard of it before. Yeah, so let me know in the comments, BookTube. Have a good one, BookTube. Bye.